This amazingly thrilling story has been taken via Reddit, written by MPC 1968. Link to his Reddit page is given in the description box below. Do not forget to check out. 5 of us went into the woods, 6 of us came out. My parents and I moved to Delaware when I was 12 years old, and I've been here ever since, except for the 6 months I spent in Kentucky. But that's not important. Anyway, anyone from Delaware should know exactly where this happened, Gillen's Pond. For those of you not familiar with the Gillen's Pond, it is one of the many state parks here in Delaware, with the normal things you would find at any state park located beside a pond: nature trails, campgrounds, picnic areas, paddle boats, etc. Gillen's Pond is located about a mile and a half down the same road as Trailer Park that my parents and I lived in just past the high school. Now, what I'm about to tell you happened about 38 years ago when I was 15. It was a hot summer's day in 1984, July 14 to be exact. How can I remember back that far, you ask? Well, that day will forever be burdened in my subconscious mind. It was a Saturday. The morning started off pretty normal. I got up around 9 o'clock, got dressed, had breakfast, said hi to my mom, then went outside to play. Back then, kids actually went outside to play with their friends, not glued to a TV screen or a phone like nowadays. Anyway, I hopped on my bike and began riding through the park, looking for my friends. I rode by Tommy's house and saw him and his brother Matt, the Dula brothers, playing with their matchbox cars on the concrete patio outside their parents' trailer. I stopped by, played cards for a while, then we all decided to ride our bikes. Matt then ran into the house to ask their mom, came running back out seconds later, saying she said it was okay. "Let's get Heidi," I exclaimed. Now, across the street from Tommy's parents' place lived Heidi Cox, the most beautiful girl in the world. At least I thought so. Tommy walked up to the trailer and knocked on the door. I was too nervous. Anyway, Heidi answered the door. After a few seconds, she turned her head and yelled in the door, "Dad, I'm riding my bikes with the boys." "Okay, be safe," her dad said. She then grabbed her bike and joined the pack. That's what we used to call ourselves, the pack. Anyway, we made a few laps around the trailer park. You see, the park was shaped like a horseshoe with trailers on both sides, just so you know. On our last lap around, Heidi slowed down just in front of Michelle's parents' house and said, "Let's see if Michelle wants to ride too." The three of us hit the brakes at the same time, turned towards Heidi and said in unison, "Not Michelle." "He's nice," she said. "If he can't ride, then I'm not either." Then stomped her foot, crossed her arms, and pouted out her lips. Now I believe this was the first time that I let my hormones outweigh my rational thinking, a trait that I continued throughout my adult life. Anyway, I'm okay with it, I said, trying to look good to Heidi. "Of course you are," Tommy replied, knowing how I feel about her. "Alright," the Dula brothers said in unison. They were always doing that. Anyway, before Heidi could even get off her bike, Michelle came running out to the house, wearing a helmet, elbow pads, knee pads, and gloves. He has those kind of parents. He then hopped on his bike and joined us. Now let me give you a rundown of each member of the pack, and Michelle. Tommy, who was 16 at the time, was a big kid, not fat but muscular. He worked out constantly. He was the adventurous, outdoorsy type into guns, knives, archery, martial arts, things like that. His younger brother Matt, who was 14 at the time, was totally opposite. He was slightly shorter than Tommy and very timid. Although he liked to hang out with Tommy when he did those things, he was too afraid to try himself. He liked gardening with his mom and writing poetry. Heidi, who was 15 at the time, just like me, was what most people would call a tomboy. I just called her beautiful. She was short, a little chubby, but the good kind of chubby. No disrespect to any of you ladies out there. Although she was not into guns and knives like Tommy was, she did climb trees, helped her dad work on their car and build stuff using power tools, and drove me absolutely crazy. Anyway, Michelle, who was also 14 at the time, was really short and, for lack of a better term, simply annoying and completely high-strung. It's not that any of us didn't like him, it's just that he never knew when to stop talking, and he was incredibly smart. He would babble on and on about the statistics on these, the percentages of that. It was like a younger version of Reed from Criminal Minds. He was into bug collecting and astronomy. And then there was me. I was tall and skinny, with hair that looked like a cross between Don King, Jimi Hendrix, and Bob Ross. I was, and for the most part still am, a nerd. You know, thick black glasses, awkward, unattractive, and clumsy, totally obsessed with Haiti, writing song lyrics, and listening to heavy metal music. Anyway, hey guys, let's ride down to Killen's Pond and ride the paddleboat. My mom said it was okay as long as I went with someone, and you are all someone, right? I can look for bugs and you can do whatever you guys do. What do you say? Wanna go? Do ya? Do ya? Huh? Michelle said really fast in a high-pitched nasal tone. My god, Michelle, please stop talking, Tommy said aggressively. Okay, sorry, what do you say? He said anxiously. We all nodded our heads. We gotta ask first, Heidi said. Okay, everyone go ask your parents and we'll meet up at the bus stop, Tommy said. He was kind of the leader. We all did and met back at the designated area. Everyone was allowed to go. Now that the interactions and the setups are done, let me tell you what you all want to know. Now, in order to get to Killen's Pond, we had to ride on the road. This way long before they put in the bicycle path in. Anyway, Tommy was first, then Michelle, then Matt, then Heidi, then me. I loved the view. Anyway, we got to the high school, which was about halfway between the trailer park and Killen's Pond, when Michelle yelled out, "Come on guys, I know a shortcut," and made a right turn into the high school entrance. We all followed as Tommy turned around and did the same. We passed the swimming pool, rode through the student parking lot, and onto the football field, past the furthest goal post, to the woods behind the school. Michelle then stopped, got off his bike, and laid it down. As each of us arrived, we did the same. "Come on," Michelle said and went to walk into the trees. "Wait a minute," Tommy said. "Where are we going?" Michelle then stopped. We go through the trees and then come to a fence, go over the fence, walk about 50 yards, and we are at the campgrounds. Then the picnic area, then the paddle boats, Michelle stated. "How do you know?" Matt asked. "Yeah," we all said in unison. "Oh, I got lost about 6 months ago. My parents rented a cabin for the weekend. I wandered off behind the cabin and found the fence, climbed over, walked a little further, and ended up here. My dad whipped my butt when I showed back up an hour later and told my folks what happened. I couldn't sit all day," Michelle said. "Let's go." "I'm game," Heidi said. "Me too," I stated. I really didn't want to go, but I didn't want to look like a wuss to Heidi. Hormones too, rational thought zero. Anyway, alright, the Dula brothers said again. Michelle went first, then Heidi. I pushed Matt playfully aside to get behind Heidi. Matt followed me, and last was Tommy. We walked a little ways and came to a chain-linked fence about 6 feet high, climbed over it, and began walking through the woods. Michelle, the high-strung kid that he was, then started running fast, leaving us behind. "Michelle, stop!" we all yelled. "Come on," he yelled back as he disappeared in the trees. Suddenly we heard what sounded like twigs and branches breaking and Michelle screaming for help. We all took off running in the directions of the scream. We came upon a small clearing to Michelle half submerged into the ground, only his torso sticking out. "What the freak?" Heidi said, stopping in her tracks. Tommy, Matt, and I ran over to him. "Everybody stop, it's a trap. Someone put branches over a hole. They're trying to catch wild animals. I just read an article on this." Tommy screamed. We all stopped. Tommy was standing about 3 feet from Michelle, who was crying at this point. "It's okay, Michelle," Heidi said. "You'll be all right." She then covered her mouth, crying as well. Tommy then took off his shirt and turned to us and said, "Give me your shirts, I have a plan." We all took off our shirts, well, all except Heidi obviously, and threw them to Tommy, who tied them together like a rope and said to Michelle, "I'm gonna throw this to you. Catch it and hold it tight, we'll pull you out." "Guys," he said to us, "get behind me, Matt. You hold on to me. Mike, you hold on to Matt and pull. Hopefully the branches will hold." Tommy then threw the rope. Matt got it on the first try. "Ready? Pull," Tommy said. We did as Michelle came out and slid across the branches that were covering the hole. He stood up as we all hugged him, Heidi as well, glad he was all right. "Where did that come from? It wasn't there before," Michelle said, turning to look at the hole. I wanna go home, Michelle said, completely overwhelmed. I mean, who could really blame him? Anyway, we all turned back to walk back to the fence when we heard a small voice say, "Hello, is anybody there?" We all stopped and looked around. "Hello," the voice said again. "Down here, help me, please." We all then stared at the hole. "No freaking way," Tommy said as he began to pull the branches over from the hole. We all began to help. After a few seconds, the hole was exposed. It was a big hole about 6 feet wide and about 10 feet deep, maybe more. We all looked down. "Help me, please," the trembling little boy said, crying. He had short red hair with no clothes on, only his tighty-whitey underpants. "Oh my God," Heidi said. "We gotta help him." "Hurry, he'll be back soon," the kid said, through his tears. Tommy then laid on the ground and said, "Mike, Matt, sit on my back to hold me down." We did as Tommy threw the rope of shirts into the hole, extending his arm down as well. "Grab it, kid, I'll pull you out," he said. "Jump, jump!" Suddenly, I felt Tommy's body move little forward, just a little, as I assumed the kid grabbed the rope. Tommy then began to pull the rope until we could see the top of the kid's head coming out of the hole. I extended my hand to him, he grabbed it, climbed over Tommy and out of the hole. He collapsed to the ground, shaking, shivering and crying. Matt and I then got off to Tommy as he stood up, untied the shirts and put them over the kid. We all huddled around him, kneeling on the ground. He was about 9 years old, covered in dirt with little cuts all over his body. "Can you walk?" Tommy asked him. The kid nodded his head. "Let's go then," Tommy said. The kid began to get up. As he did, we heard the sound of an old diesel engine close by. "He's back!" the kid screamed, trembling. "Everybody hide!" Tommy yelled softly. We all took off running. Matt and Michelle went left. Heidi and I went right. Tommy and the kid went left as well. Heidi and I ran about 10 feet and hid behind a large tree stump. Under different circumstances, I would have been the happiest kid in the world, but not now. I was scared out of my mind. The diesel engine roared on as it idled close by. I then felt Heidi grab my hand. I looked at her. "I'm scared," she mouthed, with tears in her eyes. "Me too, we'll be okay." I mouthed back and squeezed her hand. Suddenly, we began to hear the loud cracking of sound of twigs and branches being broken by someone heavy stepping on them. I turned my head to see this monstrous man walking through the woods, carrying a large knife in one hand and a live chicken in the other. He was holding the chicken by its legs. Anyway, he was a large behemoth of a man, about 7 feet tall, incredibly fat, and grunted when he walked. His face was aged and wrinkled. He wore old army boots, a pair of old dingy blue mechanics coveralls, and a red hat. His hairs were long and grey. "Dinner time, boy," he said in a deep, wheezy voice as he raised the chicken in front of him and swung the knife, cutting off its head. Blood pouring out of the chicken and all over him as the head fell into the ground, the chicken still moving. He passed Heidi and I. The faint smell of motor oil, old dirt, and piss filled my nose. As he approached the hole, he realized it was uncovered and that his capture was gone. He screamed like a wild man, raised the knife towards the sky, dropped the chicken in the hole, and took off through the woods, screaming, grunting, and wheezing. Matt and Michelle came running out of the woods shortly after. "Guys, where are you?" Matt asked, loud but in a hushed tone. Heidi and I then ran to them. "Where's Tommy and the kid?" Heidi asked, wiping her eyes. "I don't know," Matt replied. "Tommy?" We all started screaming. In retrospect, that was not a very smart thing to do. As we were yelling for Tommy and looking around, the piss-smelling, chicken-killing mechanic from hell stepped out of the woods about a foot from the hole which sat behind him. He laughed a sinister laugh and coughed repeatedly afterwards, like someone who had been smoking for 50 years. "I had one little piggy and now I got 4 little piggies. And what a pretty piggy you are," he said in the wheezy voice, staring at Heidi. "Here, piggy, piggy," he said, raised the knife and stepped towards us. Michelle screamed, "What do you want?" I yelled and stepped in front of the 3 of them. "Aren't you the brave little piggy?" he said and laughed again. "What the heck do you want?" I screamed at him. I want the boy. Bring him to me and I might let you live, he said. Now where is he? Right here, you creep. We heard Tommy yell as he stepped out of the woods and swung a huge tree limb directly at the psycho's head. The limb struck him dead smack in his face, knocking him back. He was teetering on the edge of the hole. Tommy then did a spinning heel kick, hitting him directly in the chest and knocking him back first into the hole. A loud thud was heard soon after, as well as the most sickening guttural scream that still haunts till this day. "The truck! Let's go!" Tommy yelled as we all began running towards the campgrounds. As we arrived, we saw an beat-up, dirty Ford F350 with Massachusetts plates and the engine running. "Kid, you come with me. You four, get in the back," Tommy yelled. We did as Tommy and the kid hopped in the cab. "Hold on," he yelled as he put the truck in drive and peeled out of there, like a bat out of hell. Dust and dirt and rocks flying everywhere. We followed the path that led to the main road. Tommy then stopped the truck. "I'm going to the cops," he yelled out to the window, hit the gas, made a left and made a beeline for the police station. All six of us walked in. Tommy told the lady behind the decks what happened. They immediately took the kid in the back and we never saw him again. They also impounded the truck. After giving her out our names, addresses and phone numbers, we were told to wait in the sitting area. After a few minutes, two police officers came out and escorted Heidi, Matt and Michelle to the back. After 30 minutes later, the three of them returned to the sitting area. Then they escorted Tommy and I to separate interrogation rooms in the back. I told them the story. We returned to the sitting area where we were met by our parents. Apparently, the lady at the desk called them while the officers were talking to us. Anyway, two of the officers then asked my mom and Tommy's mom if it would be alright if we went with them back to the scene. Both our moms agreed. Heidi went home with her dad and Michelle went home with his mom. Matt stayed at the station with his mom and my mom. Anyway, Tommy and I got in the police car and rode back to the campgrounds. Got out of the car and walked back to the hole, and it was empty except for the knife and the dead chicken. The officers retrieved the knife and held it as evidence. We then drove back to the station where we were told that they were free to go. Tommy and Matt went with their mom and I went with mine. A newspaper article a few days later told the story of a 9-year-old boy found at Killen's Pond by 5 teenagers. It also revealed the name of the boy that was found only as Bobby S. and showed a picture of the boy. It was the same boy we found. It also said that Bobby had been abducted from a mall in Boston 3 weeks ago and had now been returned safely to his family. Our names were not revealed given the fact that we were all under 18, I assume. It only referred to as the 5 teenagers. Anyway, the 5 of us did not talk to each other for about 2 weeks, trying to get over the events that happened, I assumed. When we did finally speak again, we made a pact not to tell anyone that didn't already know that it was us that found the boy. Soon after, Michelle and his family moved away and Heidi went to go live with her mom in New Hampshire. I never saw her again. Tommy, Matt and their family stayed in the trailer park as well as me and mine. Tommy joined the Marines just out of the high school and was shipped off to boot camp soon after. Matt got a literary scholarship to Princeton and moved out there when he graduated. I stayed local. I got a job at the grocery store in town when I turned 16 and I've been there ever since. My father got a job in North Carolina soon after I turned 18. My mom and dad signed the trailer over to me and I've been here ever since as well. Heidi still writes me from time to time and I see Tommy on occasion when he's home on leave. I don't see Matt or Michelle anymore, and as far as I know, that psycho mechanic was never caught. Now the pact I mentioned earlier is something that I kept all these years until now, because now I'm scared. You see, when I got home from work today, I found a dark blue Continental 10-speed bike, missing the front brake with the initials MPC scratched into the frame just below the seat, leaning up against my front door. The same bike that I left at the edge of the woods 38 years ago. What are your views on the psycho mechanic? Do tell me in the comments and subscribe Brainwit for more. Toodles!